and welcome to HT's weekly talk show, The Interview. Normally, court verdicts are accepted, be it grudgingly or gracefully. But not so with AIMIM leader Waris Pathan. He is stoking the fire, quite comfortable, that Muslim organizations are taking to the streets on an issue which seems to hurt politicians more than the average Muslim. In this edition of HT's weekly talk show, The Interview, we speak to Waris Pathan and decode the fight for the hijab, as it were. Welcome to the show, Mr. Pathan, and thank you for being with us.
Thank you.
Let me begin by asking you if hijab is an essential religious practice in Islam, and is it mandatory to wear a hijab because some women wear it and some don't?
Well, let me tell you, it is an essential religious practice in Islam. As the Quran, Ayat 59, Surah Azab, says that Allah says to the Prophet that, "O Prophet, please tell your women to kindly guard themselves, protect themselves through a hijab or a veil." That is what is precisely mentioned in the Quran. So it becomes an essential part of our religious practice.
So why is it then that some women don't wear it and many women don't wear it?
See, it is the freedom of choice. We don't force anybody to wear hijab. It is an individual's freedom of choice. If she wants to wear a hijab, I tell my daughter, if you want to wear a hijab, beta, you can wear. If you don't want, you don't. But it is not mandatory. But certain girls who want to protect themselves wear hijab, as it is mentioned in the Quran. So what is the harm if somebody wears a hijab?
Well, there is no harm, but then also from what you are saying, it is not essential. The word underlined is essential religious practice. Because if it were essential, then every woman would have to wear one. And when you are saying it's freedom of choice, you are actually contradicting yourself.
No, it's a freedom of choice, as I rightly said. And what is essential in Quran will be properly and rightly interpreted by the Maulvis, the Muftis, and the Ulemas who are very well conversant with the preachings of Islam and the Quran. So if we want to practice our religion, which empowers me or my daughter to wear a hijab, then nobody should have an objection. And what is the harm? Is it a threat to the national security? No. So if you keep a dupatta on your shoulder, it is allowed. The dupatta is kept on the head as a scarf or a hijab. It's not allowed. What is this logic, madam? I fail to understand this logic. And that is why I say my freedom of choice is violated.
Okay, when you're talking of logic, I also am unable, like many others, to understand if it is choice, it can't be essential. If it is essential, it can't be choice.
So the question here should have been, madam, that if the majoritarian people, they do it, it becomes their culture. And if the minority wants to obey that, it becomes a religion. And what is my fundamental right guaranteed to me by the constitution of our country, the constitution given to us by Dr. Baba Sahib Ambedkar? It is my freedom of choice. Who can tell me that I should wear this, I should not wear that, I should eat this food, I should not eat that food? That is my individual choice, liberty, equality. That is what our constitution stands for, madam.
You have spoken about Dr. Baba Sahib Ambedkar. Let me quote what he has written in his book. These burqa-clad women walking in the streets is one of the most hideous sights one can witness in India. And the court has said that his views apply to the hijab too. So first, what Dr. Ambedkar has said, and second, what the court is saying, that it applies to the hijab too.
Baba Sahib Ambedkar also spoken about the Hindutva, that they are beda garak kar denge desh ka. But here we are talking about the constitution of the courts have said is clear violation of our fundamental. I have a right to disagree or agree with the judgment of the Honorable Court. And I respectfully disagree with the judgment of the Karnataka High Court, and it suspends the fundamental right of liberty, conscience, speech, expression, and it is also against the fundamental right guaranteed to me under Article 15 of the Constitution, and it is discriminatory. Like if my Sardar Sikh brother wants to wear a turban and go to a school or a college, he is allowed. If my Hindu brother wants to wear a red thread in his hand or my Hindu sister wants to put a tilak on her head or a sindoor, that is allowed. But if a Muslim girl wears a hijab and goes to institution, that is not allowed. So this is total discrimination of the fundamental right, Article 15. And that is why there are several petitions being filed in the Honorable Supreme
Yeah.
Court. Our party
You know,
will also be a party to it. Our Karnataka unit of the MIM is filing a petition before the Honorable Supreme Court and challenging the order of the Honorable High Court.
you spoke about Sikhs wearing a turban. I take that point, but that is an essential religious practice. While hijab, and I come back to the same argument, hijab is not an essential religious practice, because if it were, then you cannot have some wearing it and some not, and the freedom of choice that you talk of.
I don't agree with you on this. The hijab is not an essential religious practice. I don't agree.
Mr. Pathan, if it is an essential religious practice, then how is it that some women do not wear it?
See, you cannot force. That is why I say freedom of choice. What about the freedom of choice? I cannot force anybody to wear a particular thing. I cannot force anybody to wear a hijab. But if an individual girl who wants to protect herself, as the Islam says, if she wants to protect, wear a hijab, what is the difficulty? They want to implement whatever they feel right. They do want to enter into personal space of an individual person. That is why our objection is there. An individual has got a right to practice a religion, which is an essential part of the religion. She has a right to wear a hijab. That's it.
You know, you're talking about the Quran. The court has relied on Muslim scholar Abdul Yusuf Ali's translation of the Quran and held, and let me quote, there is sufficient intrinsic material within the scripture itself to support the view that wearing hijab is only recommendatory, if at all it is.
See, nobody can deny a single word which is written in the Holy Book Quran. Nobody can challenge it in the entire world.
When you're talking of the Quran, are you saying a scholar like Abdullah Yusuf Ali's translation and his, contention or interpretation that there is intrinsic material to say that it is only recommendatory, you're saying it's wrong?
Well, I will believe the muftis, the ulemas who are experts in Quran, Islamic teachings, and the interpretation. I believe that, nothing beyond that.
You know, I'm surprised that an educated person like you keeps talking of the Maulanas and Mullahs, the same Maulanas and Mullahs who are fundamentalists, and the same Maulanas and Mullahs who were mute spectators when triple talaq was being practiced, and who are actually anti-women. So I'm surprised that you are saying they should decide this.
Well, no, it is not right. It is not correct to say that. There were certain unscrupulous elements in the country who used to pronounce triple talaq and all. They were fools. I would call them fools. Triple talaq itself is banned. It is not there. But then you see what has the Modi government done by issuing the law on the triple talaq. So many women kindly come with me, madam. I will take you to certain women who are facing the difficulty. Marriage itself is a civil contract as per the Islamic concept. But now, if a woman the man pronounces triple talaq, he will be sent to jail. Women will have to say that no, this is right is on me to say that whether it is a triple talaq proper or no. So all this coupled with the fact that if a man is sent to jail after coming out from the jail 6 months, will he accept the woman? No. So many women in the country are facing this kind of things. But Mr. Modi is not afraid about our sisters who are there in Vrindavan. He is only worried about the Muslim women. He said Muslim women are my sister during triple talaq. But when it comes to the education, he has kept an option. Either you wear a hijab or you go to the college. So this is the hypocrisy of the Modi government, which you want to enlighten before the entire nation.
You know, you are relying so much on the fundamentalists and the mullahs. And let me quote what they have said. मुसलमानों को अपने स्कूल शुरू करने चाहिए rather than sending them to schools that do not allow hijab. Isn't this really promoting madrasa education?
Did I say so? I am talking about women empowerment. I am talking about a woman taking education, but let her wear what she wants. Why we are giving so much preference to a dress? So you cannot just quote one mullah said. So there are so many things quoted by so many other people. If I go to talk about them, we will have to go for 10-hour interview, madam, with you then.
Don't you think, in one sense, you and your party and others like you are unleashing what is called divisive politics, and in that sense, playing with fire?
So where is the question of divisive politics now here? If I speak about the constitution, if I talk about my fundamental right which is given to me in the constitution, does it amount to divisive politics? No.
When I was talking about divisive politics, you yourself spoke about majority versus minority. And also, the court has said, and let me again quote, the social separateness. There shall be two categories of students, those wearing hijab and those not wearing hijab, thus establishing a sense of social separateness, which is not desirable. What would you say to that?
I don't believe in discrimination, as Article 15 of the Constitution says. It talks about equality. Every individual is equal before the eyes of law in the Constitution. So there should be no discrimination among the students. Let the Sardar brothers wear a turban, let the Hindus wear a sindoor. We say we want to wear uniform. We are not against the uniform. We say along with the uniform, we will wear a hijab, which is of the same color. That is what we said. That was a statement made by the councils before the Honorable High Court as well. What is the difficulty? Is it a threat to the national security? No. But these people, they want to play politics on it. They started this entire gadbad was started by the Bhajpa government, BJP.
Mr. Pathan, this is now not about the BJP, and your initial anger or your anger against the BJP is understood, accepted. But this is about the courts. This is not the BJP at all. The judgment has not been given by the BJP, but the courts, which heard the matter through and through.
Well, let the court have passed the order. And as I earlier said, I reiterate that I respectfully disagree with the judgment of the Karnataka High Court on the hijab law, and we will be a party to the appeal which will be filed before the Honorable Supreme Court.
There is another observation that the court has made, which is it has sought investigation and leveled allegations on the protesters. It has spoken of an unseen hand at work to engineer social unrest. What would you say to that?
I would say one thing there: who started this? The petitioners, the lawyers before the Honorable High Court in the Karnataka have mentioned that they were wearing the hijab since a long time. So this was started by the BJP prior to the UP elections. If the unseen hands are there, let that be investigated. But to protest in a peaceful way is also my fundamental right. But no violence. We are totally against any kind of violence. We want a peaceful protest.
That is reassuring. When you say that there has been no problem, hijab has been worn for a long time, the court has, again, and I quote, has observed, we noticed that all was well with the dress code. Now, this is specifically about the uniform. All was well with the dress code since 2004. So the problem has erupted December last year. Suddenly, why?
That is what I said. It was argued before the court as well that they were wearing the hijab. But all of a sudden, a teacher came there and he felt that no, you should not wear a hijab. Then the row started, and the Karnataka government issued a GO, and that matter went to the court. And now I am before you giving the interview of the hijab.
Mr. Pathan, there were only 5 girls actually initially. It's not, and then since 2004, I also, with whatever limited sources I have checked, they were not wearing a hijab. There was no issue. The issue happened in December. So somewhere, I'm not making an allegation, but I'm asking you, somewhere there is a timing factor. There is a factor that the same girls, same school uniforms were, being followed. And now suddenly 5 girls insist, we want to wear a hijab and it is our right. In the school, nobody is disputing their right to wear it outside.
This question, madam, you should ask the BJP spokespersons, the BJP government, that why all of a sudden you started this hijab issue when this was being worn by the girls prior to that. They should answer to this. My observation and what I feel is that they did not have, prior to the UP elections, people were asking them questions about the rise in fuel, gas, oil prices. People were asking them questions about the job which they don't have, about the COVID deaths and the Ganga Ghats which we saw for Hindu brothers and sisters, the dogs were eating the corpses. So they did not have any answer to that. Lakhimpur happened, Hathras happened to die, but the mind of the nation from that, this was one of the polarizing tactics is taken out by the BJP government prior to the UP election. Otherwise, all was well. There also in Karnataka, the girls say, we don't, we want to wear uniform. We will wear the uniform. Only thing is, allow us to wear a hijab of the same color. What is the harm in that? Is it a national security threat? Which you cannot answer, madam. I am asking you several times. If some girl wears a hijab and goes to the school, what is the harm? Is it a threat to the national security? Answer to my question.
I will answer it. The threat to the national security is not because the girls are wearing a hijab. The threat to the national security is because those who are fanning this movement and this communalism. So let's get that clear. This is not something which is a sudden need which has come up with 5 girls suddenly waking up one day. And some of them joined a political party and then said, after that, we started wearing a hijab. So it's not as simple and as innocent as you're making it sound. When it is national security, let's not oversimplify and say just because girls are wearing a hijab, it is a threat. No, those who are fanning the movement, which is what exactly the court said, is a threat to national security. So let's be clear on this, Mr. Pathan.
Fanning, creating communal divide, all we can see is, I don't want to go on that topic, but as you have said, I will just give you a short hint. Recently, what we are seeing in the country about the movie Kashmiri Files, who's trying to divide communalism, federalism. So this we don't want to go on that. Let us stick to the topic on hijab.
Yeah, that's why I said, let's not go to Kashmir Files. And my question is, when you said national security, let's answer that.
No, how is it a threat to national security?
Those who are fanning the movement are a threat to national security. That is the point.
No, Govi challenging an honorable High Court judgment, challenging it before the honorable Supreme Court, will you call it framing an issue? If I want to challenge a judgment, there are other superior courts to correct the judgments. So if I go to the Supreme Court or if any religious institution which feels that no, we have to challenge the judgment and it is not proper, we will go for the correction of the judgment.
But when you say that wearing a hijab, is it a threat to national security? That is my argument, that it is not wearing a hijab. It is those who are pushing the girls to wear it and then take to the streets. That is a threat to national security because they are funded and they are being instigated by anti-national forces. That's the point.
No. This is absurd.
Are you saying that this agitation, these protests, these taking to the streets is not fanned by political parties?
Till now, what I have heard is that some religious organizations, Muslim organizations have called for a Karnataka Bandh, peaceful protest to show solidarity with the girls on the hijab issue. They're doing it peacefully. Violence, I am against violence. Challenge the judgment in the court. Let the Supreme Court decide, as will be the judgment in the Sabarimala case, will be the same for this hijab.
One of the arguments being used is if wearing a hijab is accepted as an essential religious practice, then it could violate the rights of those not wanting to wear one. And this would make hijab compulsory for all women to wear. And this is one of the logic the court has used in this judgment.
No. We are talking about equality, fundamental right of an individual person, freedom of choice, which is guaranteed to us by the Constitution. Here, the question of force is not there at all. Individual's choice, freedom of choice.
But when you say it is, and the argument in court is that it's an essential religious practice, then it becomes essential for every woman to wear it. And that is the argument the court took when it said it is not a religious practice. It is a measure, and it has noted and quoted the Quran where it says that the Quran shows concern for cases of molestation and hence recommended hijab as a measure of social security. The court has further said it has something to do with culture and not religion. Do you agree with this? If it is cultural, then it cannot be a religious essential practice.
Well, I believe that, and what I've been seeing is that if a majoritarian view is shown, it becomes a part of their culture. But when it comes to the minority view, it becomes the part of a religion. So that is why we said let the matter be settled before the Honorable Supreme Court. Let me give us order, let it be decided. This discrimination
All right.
cannot be allowed. See, equality, Article 15, the fundamental right. Everybody is equal in the eyes of the law. But here, as I said, if it is a majoritarian view, it's culture. But when it comes to the minority, religion, let the essentiality word be decided.
All right. Now, if the Supreme Court upholds the High Court verdict, then what would be your options and what would be your game plan?
Let's see what the Supreme Court says. Sabarimala judgment is also pending before the Honorable Supreme Court. 9-judge bench is deciding. We will see what happens to that judgment. We will see what happens to the judgment on the hijab row. Then we'll take a call on that. We will see.
You know, you've been referring to the Sabarimala judgment, and the court has held that right to freedom of religion is not absolute, and the state can make laws in religious matters. And that is exactly what has happened in the Karnataka case, in the hijab case. The state government has used its right to make a law for school uniform. So when you're quoting the Sabarimala judgment, it is actually akin to what has been done in Karnataka.
The central government has said in the Niketan schools, I am forgetting the name of the school, there hijab is allowed. How can the state government go against that?
You know, when you say center is saying one thing, what can the state say? We are in a federal system. So the states can form their own laws. So what's wrong with that?
If one state follows a separate law, the other state follows a separate law, where are we heading for, madam? That is why if the judgment comes from the Honorable Supreme Court, applicable to everybody in all states of the country.
Let me take you to the Uttar Pradesh and the recently concluded elections. Hijab was an electoral issue which your party flagged. If it was so emotive, then why is it that your party, the AIMIM, did not win a single seat in the assembly elections, and all but one candidate lost the security deposit? Now, it was such an emotive issue. If it was something which was affecting all Muslims, then this should have reflected in the election results.
Well, madam, it is the people's mandate. और एक चीज जिंदगी की यही रीत है, हार के बाद ही जीत है. आज हारे हैं, कल जीतेंगे. इलेक्शन आ रहे हैं, हौसला नहीं हारे, हिम्मत नहीं हारे हैं, और इंशाल्लाह पूरी ताकत के साथ फिर इलेक्शन लड़ेंगे और जीतेंगे. कांशीराम ने क्या कहा था मैडम? पहले चुनाव लड़ाओ हारने के लिए, फिर लड़ो हराने के लिए, फिर लड़ो जीतने के लिए. तो आगे भी जीतेंगे.
वो बात आपकी ठीक है पठान साहब, बट टेल मी दैट इतना अगर ये हिजाब के बारे में पूछ रही हूँ, अगर इतना इमोटिव इशू था, मुस्लिम्स को इतना अफेक्ट कर रहा था, तो आपकी पार्टी को एक सीट तो मिल जाती या कुछ सिक्योरिटी डिपॉजिट बच जाते.
हिजाब इशू तो बहुत लेटर आया. हमने जब यूपी हम गए इलेक्शन लड़ने के लिए, तो हमने कहा था कि हम वहां जा रहे हैं, हमारा मुद्दा है बीजेपी को हराना, और हम इंश्योर करना चाहते हैं कि योगी आदित्यनाथ उत्तर प्रदेश का फिर से चीफ मिनिस्टर नहीं बने. हमने कहा था हमारी बराबरी की लड़ाई है, हिस्सेदारी की लड़ाई है. उत्तर प्रदेश की सियासत में हमको भी हमारा हिस्सा चाहिए. इतने बरसों से जो मुसलमानों का सिर्फ वोट लिया, तो क्या सिर्फ दरी बिछाएंगे? नहीं, उनका भी पॉलिटिकल एम्पावरमेंट होना चाहिए. तो ये तो इशू बहुत लेट आया. तो हमारे तो इश्यूज जो थे पब्लिक के इश्यूज लेके गए थे. हमने जो बढ़ती हुई महंगाई दर थी उसकी बात की थी. हमने बात की थी जो गंगा किनारे बहती वो हमारे हिंदू भाई बहनों की जो लाशें थी, जिनको कुत्ते नोच के खा रहे थे, क्योंकि योगी सरकार उनको शमशान में जलाने के लिए लकड़ा नहीं दे सकी. हमारे इशू थे, बेरोजगारी का हमारा इशू था. अब जनता जनार्दन है, वो चाहे, उसको संविधान ने अधिकार दिया है कि वो किसको वोट दे, किसको वोट नहीं दे.
Mr. Waris Pathan, thank you very much. Thank you for your time and thank you for being here with us.
Thank you.